I am so excited because today we are in Indianapolis, Indiana at the headquarters of ICAN, which stands for Indiana Canine Assistant Network. And I am joined by Tala. She is a 16-week golden retriever puppy who is currently in training to be a service dog. And we are so excited to sit down with Jillian, Ashton, and Sean Diamond today to talk about everything that ICAN does in the Indianapolis community and how this cutie and her friends help and serve everybody here. Tell me about you. Tell me about how you got here and how you started ICAN.
Yeah, well, ICAN is a really unique not-for-profit in central Indiana where we train service dogs to be with people living with disabilities, but we uniquely train them in prisons throughout the state. And so we have inmate handlers that actually do the job. They train the dog to be ready to go to the end user, which is the client. And it's a really beautiful opportunity to bring two very unlikely people together. And they're there just to help each other, which is really amazing. So we're really proud of the work that we're doing. And we're about a 20-year-old organization and celebrating our 20th year next year, and just really grateful for the people that we're able to impact.
I love that. What did you do before this?
Mostly not-for-profit management.
Perfect.
And it culminated a lot of the efforts that I had been working on over the last several decades, and just kind of fell into this position. And I thought for sure this was definitely could not be happening, to be able to work for an organization that you were so in love with and loved the mission and passion, and then to be on the employee side to help move that mission further and put strategy behind what we were doing.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And I know when Sean and I talked to you for the first time, like, we were just so blown away by how ICAN uses, they work with prison inmates to train these dogs. I mean, you talked about bringing together two unlikely people that would connect. Yes. I mean, that is such an impact. I can't even imagine the stories that you have, like, that just probably bring you to so many tears. I just think it's so incredible.
Absolutely.
I love that. And
Absolutely.
I just think that's so cool.
So yeah, there are lots of stories that we could highlight, but one that really struck me, we typically have our graduation ceremonies in the Indiana Women's Prison here in Indianapolis.
Okay.
We invite the community to be a part of that celebration whenever the handler is actually graduating the dog and then giving it to the individual, the end user. And so we were at graduation, and I saw this couple kind of standing off the side and not really engaging with the rest of the individuals that were there. And I just walked over and said hello, introduced myself, and come to find out that it was the parents of one of our inmate handlers. Aww. She had been incarcerated for about 11 years, and this was their first time they had ever come to visit her in the prison in that period of time. And It just struck me that at that moment we were a conduit for a family to come together and be able to bridge maybe some hurts and do some healing just through the program. And they were so proud of her. She was graduating her very first dog at that particular graduation ceremony. And I just felt like this wasn't just about getting the dog to graduate, and it wasn't just about us meeting our mission, but there was something bigger going on with this family being able to be there and support her and show that they were proud of her.
So with that, that's a perfect next question. And I would love to dive into this more with Sean when we sit down and interview him, which is next to come.
Yeah.
But how does an inmate, decide that this is something they want to do? Do they reach out? Do you reach out to them? Like, how does that whole process work in that selection?
Yeah, we have it set up in a way that it's very much like a job opportunity. And like most jobs, people refer individuals that they feel that might be good or qualified to do the job. So typically, when we hold our interview process, there are individuals on the staff at the prison that might identify somebody that could be a good candidate for our program.
Okay.
They may be at a place in their life where they've done maybe some other programming, that they're ready emotionally and mentally to be able to work with this program. You have the responsibility of the dog 24/7, and that is a huge responsibility. It's not like just going to school and that you can turn off the job at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This is a full-time commitment. So we rely heavily on the staff at the prison to identify the individuals. But then there's an interview process. So they do an application, we review their strengths and their skills, we hold an interview. So we're trying to teach them job skills from the very beginning so that they know how to approach an interview, how to answer questions effectively. And then if selected, they become kind of an apprentice program with us. And some of those trainers and handlers that have been in our program for a longer period of time become their mentors and try to help shape their experience so that they can become the best trainers that they possibly can. So it's really, again, there's multiple layers of this opportunity that you're intrinsically changing the individual as they navigate a new paradigm and navigate a new opportunity. And then again, they get to contribute to the work, they contribute to the world's work just from where they are. You don't have to be outside those prison walls in order to impact people. And that's what we're trying to show them, that they can make impact right there, right where they are.
That is amazing, and I love how it's so multi-layered. You know, that's teaching such a different level of responsibility, and it's teaching, you know, maybe if they didn't have interview skills or anything like that really is. And then the mentor program, I mean, that is just so multi-layered, and I love that. I mean, talk about a multi-layered impact of just this organization and who you impact on both sides.
Both sides of the leash, absolutely.
Both sides of the leash, that's so cute. Did ICAN always work with prison inmates for this?
For the most part, in the very, very beginning of our organization, we tried to identify juveniles that were in detention situations and worked with adolescents that might be at risk, and that part of our program was really significant, but we didn't have the longevity with that particular individual to be able to get the dog fully trained. So then we had to shift to adults, and so very early on we learned that was going to be the most successful. And typically, we graduate about 60% of the dogs that come through our program, which is typically higher than the national average. Usually national average is around 50%. And we do think that having them in that inmate situation or in that prison situation with the inmate, it provides a lot of consistency for the dog. And again, they're responsible for 24/7. So we feel like that might attribute to the success rate of these dogs getting all the way through and then being placed with an individual living with a disability.
You know, it's so cool because you all are training these dogs to be service dogs, which I want to touch on in a little bit because, again, we spotlight therapy dogs mostly. But coming from our side of things, and you know this, but I'm going to still share this, dogs in general have such a therapeutic benefit that they are able to tear down walls that we can't necessarily as people. They can do it really quickly and just so organically. And ultimately, these dogs that you're bringing into these prisons are going to serve someone else for a specific need as their service dog role. But what's so cool is that they're probably impacting so many people in such a therapeutic way in that prison system, whether it's inmates, whether it's their inmate handler, whether it's the staff, for whatever reason. I mean, we know that dogs have such a great way of just bringing such joy to what can be such a negative situation, no matter what that looks like. And that's so cool that they're almost doing that from the very beginning when they get there.
It's very multifaceted. We're at the number of people that they're able to impact. We've even had situations where we've had a litter of puppies that typically will whelp that litter in a home of a volunteer for about 4 to 5 weeks. And then from that point, we take the mama and the babies and actually put them in the prison environment. So the inmates are responsible to finish the whelp of those puppies. And you talk about joy. That's usually when everyone wants to come down to the dormitory where we're training and be around the puppies. And lots of staff want to be involved in that upbringing of those puppies, knowing that they're destined to do something really important. So it really does build the prison community and giving them an opportunity to be a part of something bigger than themselves.
I love that. So with service dogs, for those that don't know, explain what a service dog does, If you know enough about therapy dogs, like share how they're different. We talk about this on our channel a lot, and we're actually putting together a kind of an explanation of what therapy dogs are and how they differ from ESAs, and then how they differ from service dogs. But I'd love to hear your take on what these dogs are going to end up doing and who they're going to end up serving as their end role once they're graduated.
Sure. So service dogs are task-trained dogs. They have the ability to learn a skill that is definitely going to impact some need that the client has. So for an example, if the individual can't pick something up off the ground because they may be in a wheelchair, the dog is then trained to actually retrieve an item that they may have dropped. So the really differentiator between a therapy dog and a service dog is that they have been task trained to do something to mitigate someone's disability. And the type of folks that we place dogs with are mostly mobility. That's kind of our sweet spot, giving a balance assist to that individual, giving them more independence with the help of the dog. And then from there, we do also place in facilities like schools, hospitals, rehabilitation centers for a different purpose than a therapy dog. It's, again, they're task trained to help that therapist, perhaps in a rehab center, that occupational or physical therapist, to actually do treatment with the patient with the dog's intervention. And so the dog may be doing something like just chasing a ball, but that's getting the patient to rotate their rotator cuff or something like that,
so cool.
that had surgery on it. So that's, they're very much task trained in that sense. We also place dogs with individuals with diabetes to do diabetic alert. So when they go hypo or hyperglycemic, the dog will go ahead and alert them about 30 minutes prior to a monitor would, so that individual can do intervention more immediate if they needed to get juice or some type of snack to be able to raise their sugar levels. So the dog is trained to be able to alert and to give that indication so that person doesn't get into a situation where they might then need to call 911.
Wow.
So the dog is a facilitator in that. And from there, we also place in-home placements where the dog may not need public access. They don't need to go out in public as much, but they're with maybe a child with autism that can be and serve at home with the family to just help mitigate that child's needs. Or if there's a tantrum, then the dog might be a calming factor. Or if there's an opportunity to provide a tactile type of situation, petting the dog and grooming the dog and giving that child an opportunity to exercise those skills. So we place in multiple levels, and especially with our mobility, we also place with veterans that may have served our country and may need a little bit of assistance with the help of a dog, so we're able to facilitate that too. So we're trying to encompass multiple people, but the dog tells us what their job is going to be. Typically around 16 months old or so, they kind of show their strengths, if they're going to be really good at going from person to person, or if they're going to be really connected with one person, if they're really skilled at retrieving and mobility and a balance, then we know kind of what direction they need to go, just based on the skills that they are showing us.
That is so cool, and they really will. I mean, with Nash even, we saw that he loves kids, but for a while we're like, where is his niche? And it is so cool because they will tell you. They will. And their strengths really do shine. And I think that's just so incredible.
And some of them tell you that they don't want to work at all. So then
yes, that's also true.
We have an exit plan for those dogs to change of career at some point if that's not their skill. Because this is not just about serving these two human sides, right? The inmate population or the individual with the disability, but it's also giving the dog work that they enjoy. And so there are dogs that just we simply know that this is not going to be their jam, to use your word earlier. This is not going to be their jam. So we allow them to then exit this opportunity and maybe become a pet so that they can enjoy their life, but they're a really highly skilled pet for sure.
Oh, I bet. I bet there's probably a line of people that are like, I will take your puppies that do not make training.
Absolutely.
So with ICAN being around 20 years old, you said, how many dogs have you graduated in those 20 years? Do you know offhand, like the final number?
I think at this moment we've placed about 150 dogs in different situations.
So cool.
Currently today we have about 100 active clients that we follow. Once we do place a dog with the individual, we are with them for the lifetime of the partnership.
Okay.
So we're always evaluating, making sure that the dog's skills maintain at a certain level. And sometimes that person's disease changes, especially with things like multiple sclerosis or ALS. The disease changes, and so the needs may change. And so we may need to get back in there to identify a new need that the client may have with the dog. And we often have refreshers for those clients to come and us to evaluate, so that way we can make sure we're staying on top of their partnership.
Let's say someone's watching this and like you know, when you found ICAN, they are like, I want to be a part of that. Can people volunteer? And if so, what does that process look like? Could they get involved with this organization from a actual career standpoint, from a volunteer standpoint? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so people getting involved is really important. We have about 200 volunteers that really are the engine to drive what we do on a daily basis. We have a staff of 7, so having those volunteers are really critical in order to keep things moving. And as I mentioned before, we do take the dogs out of prison to give them different experiences or to reinforce the skills that they're learning in the prison environment, to reinforce them actually in public, you know, grocery stores, churches, things like that. So we have on our website, if you go to icandog.org, we have the ability for people to learn a little bit about volunteering with us. Everything from taking the dog out of the prison, which we call furloughing, to helping us have a litter of puppies. Some of our volunteers actually have the whelp in their home, so they actually help facilitate the puppies being born, and then there's also the opportunity to care for them until either they're old enough to go with volunteers or old enough to go back into the prison. So there's those things, and of course we have events that we always need people to attend and participate or share, and we try to do a lot of our events now because of COVID. We've changed some of our events to be virtual, so we have fans all over the country supporting what ICAN does. So just if you go to our website, there's lots of good information about how to get involved.
Okay, that's super helpful. So it's icandog.org.
Yes.
And then how can everybody find you online through social media?
Yep, so we have Facebook account and also Instagram at icandogs. That's kind of our handle, and so there's always something, videos, or we're posting about education about service dogs versus therapy dogs versus emotional support. So we have this whole great community that supports us online as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. Yes. I am just so grateful for everything you do, and with Indy having been our home for so long, it just makes me really proud. Thank you. But it makes us really proud, and we're just so grateful to know you and to now call you a friend, and I just cannot wait to see what the Lord does with this organization and how many more people he touches. You guys are doing great work.
Thank you. And so are you, so can't wait to see your journey as well. So thank you again for highlighting us and taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Sean, thank you so much for sitting down with us. I'm so excited to hear your story and how you've really fit in with ICAN and how you found this organization. So do you mind just kicking us off and telling us who you are and what your story is, just some brief background?
My name is Sean Diamond. I'm the Director of Training for ICAN. I've been in this position with ICAN since 2013. I've been involved with ICAN in different roles since 2004. Most of my life was sports, not school, sports. Only school to be able to play sports. Lived in Canada for 9 years playing hockey, for minor league hockey, professional hockey. Something happened in my life that kind of turned my life around. My daughter was killed by a drunk driver, and my daughter and fiance. And I made some real poor choices. I knew better. Didn't care at the time, I'll be honest, and never kind of moved away from hockey and got into some stuff I shouldn't have and ended up incarcerated, which never thought that would be the case. And I was at Branchville down south, Branchville Correctional Facility down south in Indiana.
Okay.
on the Ohio River, right on the border of Kentucky. And they put up this flyer that a service dog program was coming, and all I thought about was dogs. You know, I had dogs growing up, never trained them, but I'm not really comfortable socially. I'd prefer to be alone. I'm more of a loner, and okay, I'd love to have a dog here because prisons, it could be overwhelming, especially when you're not used to it and you're not getting mixed up in all the stuff going on. So I wanted a dog, so I applied, and I got hired in 2004, and I got a dog, and I didn't do very well. I had a lot of resentment, anger in me.
I can imagine.
Didn't use any skills or didn't think about or have any skills to get over how much of it was there, and I wasn't doing my job. I was just having a dog, and I was responding to situations inappropriately. Got in a couple fights, which if they had found out, I wouldn't have had a dog anymore. And they were my fault, just snapping at people, just not caring. And I don't know what turned the light on other than they took my dog from me and I had to make a decision, but not just make the decision to keep the dog, but actually put forth some work. And the funny thing happened when I started putting forth some work. I had to ask questions to get better, to show that I was trying to improve, and I started coming out of my shell a little bit, and I started becoming more involved in this community of people that at least most of them wanted to not just be in that prison culture and just try and improve themselves also. And it helped me. It helped me. I got out in 2008 and didn't know what I was going to do. I had lost my parents when I was incarcerated, and stayed with my brother for 2 days. Him and his girlfriend were doing drinking, doing drugs, and I had never really done any of that until the tragedy happened, but I didn't want to be put in a situation. I went to my parole officer, and everything we hear about parole officers, they don't care. You got enough on their plate, they don't care, they're not trying to help you. And apparently I got one that wanted to help me.
Wow.
And she said, we have a bed at the Salvation Army Adult Rehabilitation Center in Gary, Indiana. This was in Maryville. And you can go there today, but it's about an 11-mile walk. Or we'll put you up at a hotel and we'll take you tomorrow. I was a little shocked. So I went there, finished getting my degree. I got a BSW, Bachelor in Social Work. And after I got out of their program, because you have to go in their program to have a bed, I became intake coordinator and eventually director of rehabilitation services, with my social work degree, and I was running the programs. ICAN offered me one of my a service dog to work in the facility, and one of my two favorite dogs, a golden, and his name was Cubby, and I didn't name it, but I am a diehard Cub fan.
Makes sense with being from Chicago.
And he was remarkable, helping kids deal with, when we were doing individual counseling, I'll never forget this young child, Jeremy, that wouldn't even come in the room with his dad because he had witnessed domestic violence and even been a part of it. And eventually, when Cubby's sitting in the hall, eventually he was going to get a toy out of the room and then sitting on the couch. He never got to but he would sit next to his dad, but he was part of the process and was sitting with his mom in the room. And it was all because of the dog. And to see 113 men, and when we have group training, most of them don't want to be there. You know, most of them are paroled or it's cold out, so they want shelter, and they go through group sessions, and you have a dog at 5 in the morning when they're waiting in line for chow, a golden, it kind of breaks down barriers. Or when they're in a group session, like I said, he would open the door, turn on the light, carry a basket of pens and pass it around, carry a basket with paper and carry it. It kind of gets people breaking down barriers and laughing or talking about Cubby. They're more willing to talk and be participants. So he opened a lot of doors for a lot of people. And I had been coming down here to Indy for some fundraisers, and then started helping out with team training within the correctional facility, which is another story, being a former inmate in this state. And I moved down here and I was working at participate more, and I was working at the Indy Humane. The executive director asked me to apply for the director of training position. And I said, I'd think about it. And apparently a week later, the board approved me, but
I love that.
well, Jillian was part of that. I didn't apply. So I've been here ever since 2013 I came on, and I work over, I'm directly responsible for the correctional facilities, all the handlers, oversee the program department, which includes our breeding, our clients, our volunteer coordinator, and oversee all the dogs they're training. And it keeps me busy, and I enjoy it. We're helping so many people, and you've talked about it with Jillian, that we're helping the inmates, we're helping the staff in the facilities, we're helping the clients, and our focus is the welfare of the dogs too. So I mean, it's just, and what we could bring to the community, and just what you see with Nash, what a dog imparts therapeutically just when someone sees a dog, as I talked about at the rehab center. So I'm happy to be working with Jillian and the staff, and
I love that.
we're starting another team training Thursday and placing dogs with clients.
Oh, that's so cool. So it's so cool to think that you said the very first dog that you had, you did not give yourself an A+ with training. And look at you now. I mean, you talk about like a total 180, and now you're the director of training for ICAN, overseeing all the handlers and all of the dogs. I'm, first of all, just to really applaud you. I'm so proud of you, because that's huge to come from the situation that you were in. I can't imagine the emotions that come from that, and just the feeling of hopelessness and brokenness. And you've redeemed that and have brought so much joy and hope from such a really tough situation. And I didn't know that, and I'm really sorry for everything.
I had a lot of good people placed in my life, in my way during that. I would not have done that on my own. I'm not going to sit here and say I could. I'd have been stuck in that same anger and resentment. But I had a lot of help.
Yeah. Well, I love that too, because now you get to believe in other people that need that. And I just think that's so great to be able to give back and love people and help people in a way that you needed to. And I'm just so proud of you. So I would love to know what a day in the life of being an inmate handler looks like with a brand new youthful puppy. What does that look like?
Well, it's a little different with a puppy than it is with an adult dog that they have. So with puppies, obviously they're up more in the middle of the night even to let the puppy out. They're probably on a 2 to 3 hour, when they first get their puppy at 16 weeks or sometimes earlier, but normally 16 weeks. They're going to be on a 2 to 3 hour at most cycle of going out. And luckily the facilities are very invested in our program, and they work with, and the staff, and they let the handler out at night, which normally isn't done. And when they get up in the morning, a lot of puppy work is going to be impulse control. I mean, they're very impulsive. They don't know what we want from them. They just do what works for them, what makes them feel good, whether it's jumping on somebody. And for us, that as they get bigger, the jumping on people could be an issue. Or,
absolutely.
So a lot of it's impulse work and just taking time, short sessions, 10, 15 minutes a day of going outside and standing in the middle of the sidewalk away from the grass as far as possible, and rewarding them for not pulling towards the grass and moving closer, or having people come up and greet them to set them up for success, maybe on the side, so that if they don't jump, we can reward them, because that reward, whatever it is food or it's petting or it's praise, gives them the information. Oh wait, if I do this, I get this. But every time I do jump on somebody, for instance, and I don't get anything, eventually that behavior extinguishes if you're consistent enough. But with a puppy, as Jillian had mentioned previously, it's 24/7. We do want them to get some alone time in the crate, but you're working on crate training at short durations, because you don't want to shove them in a crate and leave them there for 4 hours. They get and they get stressed out. That behavior is going to occur again. That internal stress is going to come right when they see that crate.
Right.
A lot of diligence, and they're taking the dog out. They're feeding them at intervals. They're working with other handlers. When they have free time, they got to entertain the puppy and hope. And if the puppy won't entertain itself, so it's a lot. And they have group trainings 4 days a week in each facility, where when I'm not there, that they have to, as a group, they have group training. So they have to be a part of that and work in a group. And it can be difficult. They're thrown together, not always having the skills, the personal, interpersonal skills to work with other people or take direction from other people, which is a real issue, or how to do that and do it appropriately. And when conflict comes up, how to resolve it in an appropriate manner. So it's a busy day and a day in the life, because they also have, now they can go to rec, they can take their dog. We want them to be involved in other things.
Okay.
They trade off their dogs because we don't want them relied on one at least once a week. So it's a very busy day in the life, and they're there for 6 weeks, and then 3 weeks they go out with a volunteer, and then they come back.
One last question before we wrap up, and I'm so intrigued by this, is the handoff process. So 2 years goes by and these pups are trained and ready to go and be with the client. How does that handoff process work between the inmate handler and the new puppy dog owner client?
So we do a team training where the clients come into Indiana Women's Prison. Currently, that's the prison we're using, and they actually train with the handlers that finish the dog.
Wow.
And they'll do one-on-one training for a period over 2 weeks, and there's occasional group training, but they're with that handler in a separate room, and I'm bouncing around between rooms, just teaching the handler about their dog.
Wow.
The skills their dog can use, and they're troubleshooting for that specific client, little things that they may need help with. If, balance assist, I lean more to the left, or that's where I start to fall. Different little things that they need, or a higher wheelchair and the retrieve needs to be given at a higher, into the hand at a higher level than dogs used to. Just different things. They learn about the client, they learn each other. We have lunch in the prison, and they eat together and they talk, and then hopefully they're talking more about just not the training as much. And after 2 weeks, on the final Thursday, we do a graduation ceremony, and get a few hundred people in there and into the prison, Indiana Women's Prison, and we're doing a graduation ceremony, and they actually hand off on the stage they hand the vest, the new vest to the dog, and do the official handoff, even though the client's already taken the dog home for about a week.
Oh, okay.
So they do an official kind of little handoff, and it is emotional.
I bet.
It's very emotional. We all have dogs, and it's tough to let sometimes it's tough to leave your dog in the morning. But
I so understand that.
and it's very tough. Some handlers have had them for 6 months or 18 months. This one dog, and
they become a part of them.
And in that environment, they're even more becoming, they're with them 24/7. So it's very emotional. But what they see, who they're helping live a more independent life, and that's what gets them through it. And then their next dog comes. So
I love
that helps
so
too.
much. Yes, that is very helpful.
That helps
I
too.
love that so much. To wrap up, would the new client still be able to stay in contact with the inmate handler, or at that point does that stop there?
So that relationship they can't be in contact as like friends or in contact.
Okay.
We do provide refreshers both inside and outside the facility. So if they come inside, they can work with that previous handler if she's still in the program.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, they can't be in contact with the handler.
Okay.
It's Department of Correction rules.
Well, I understand. I just want everybody to be best friends, so.
Sure.
Well, this has been so insightful. Like I told Jillian, I'm just obsessed with what you guys do. I just think it's just so unique, and it's just such a creative way to bring our community together in such a different facet. And I am so excited for people to see this and to learn more about you and what you guys do, just to get involved in any way that they can. Because the truth is, we talk a lot about therapy dogs, but with your organization, with ICAN, there's so many ways that people can be involved and to help you serve, because no volunteer is too many. So
That's definitely right, yes.
The more the merrier. Well, I'm so grateful for your time, Sean. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your story with us. I know that I know that you've come a long way, and I'm just so proud and I'm so grateful for what you do, and I know everybody at this whole organization is too. So thank you.
Thank you, Christina.